Okay. In this case, I already gave you the circle that represents the sphere. But if you were starting out, it would help you if you did a perfect square and then the circle inside of the square. Okay? Are you following my lesson back there? Jack Harry, are you following my lesson? I don't see you working. And you owe me a lot of work. Okay, and you're not the only one, by the way. And we'll talk about late works right now. After I do this, I don't know. I was recording, then I got distracted because I didn't see you doing your work. Okay, so I was saying you would draw a square first, and that would help you to draw the circle. So we're gonna work in reverse a little bit. Let's draw a square, because the square will actually help us draw the shadow of the sphere. Make sure you have a perfect square, 90 degrees. And make sure the circle is touching the square. So it should fit really well in the square. Okay. So let's say you don't have the circle yet, and you don't have a template to draw a perfect circle. So you could actually use the same methods that we've been doing. The X, the cross, that way you have your 4 outer points. Okay, and then you would do the concentric one, 3/4, a little bit over 2, not 3/4, I'm sorry. You look at this diagonal, you subdivide it into 3 equal sections, so a little over 2/3, and you find these 4 inner points. Okay, and then it should help you draw the curves freehand. Okay, and at the same time, having these 4 outer points will help us draw the cast shadow of the sphere. Okay, and I'll show you why. So let's take a look at this line on the left side. Let's treat it like the pole. So this is the bottom of the pole, which connects with the ground pivot point. And you guess how long it would be. And then the top with the light source. And we have an intersection right there. So let's do the same on the right side. We have another pole right here. The bottom with the ground pivot point. Try to guess how long it would be. The top with the light source. And it should intersect somewhere here. Now we need to connect these two lines, which it should give you a line parallel to this one approximately. It might be slightly off. Like I see mine a little bit off. Probably, the marker is a little bit fat. Let me just correct. I think the intersection is more like right here. And probably this one may be a little bit longer. So from here to here, you draw a line which would correspond to this horizontal pole per se. From here to here is a cast shadow of this. Okay? So pretty much what we did right now, if we use these three lines as well as this bottom line, we created the cast shadow of a standing square. Okay, let's say you have a square standing, like a lonely wall, just standing on the ground. That would be its cast shadow. Okay, if that was the shape that you had, then you would just shade it. Okay, but we're trying to do the cast shadow of the sphere. So in the same way that we use the square to find all these points and draw the curve, we will find those points along these lines to help us draw the curve. This one right here, all we have to do is measure and find half, like it's about 6 centimeters, so it should be 3 centimeters. Or what you can do is just use the light source with the top, and it should fall right in the half. See how everything starts to get interconnected? Okay, so this point, we found it right here. Now we need to find this point along this line. If we think of this pole as a shorter pole, we ignore this and we have a tiny little pole. We can do the same. We already have the ground line. Just this point connects as if it was the top with the light source. It's right here. And then this point, we already have the ground line. This one right here. We think of this as a short pole. So now this is the top. Connect the light source point with this point. Draw a line all the way past it. And now we have it right here. So now we have these 3 points. So it's 1, 2, 3. 1 is here, 2 is here, and 3 is here. And we have one extra point that is already there. This one right here. It's the same one because it's the same line. So we don't have to do anything. So now with those 4 points, we should draw the curve. Now this is when we should rely on our experience from observational drawing, if you have already taken it. If not, you will take it and you will create an image bank in your brain of how things should look like. I'll give you some extra steps if you're having a hard time finding the curve, and I know it's not easy. But the curve should only touch this foreshortened shape at these 4 points, just like the circle. Okay? So pretty much you're gonna do some freehand of the curve. Try not to do the mistake of following this line, like curving it like that and then going like that. Okay, so this would be wrong. It should only touch it. It seems like it touches it a little bit more, but that's because it's really close to the line. It should be somewhere like that. It should look like an ellipse. Okay. Remember when I show you the real shapes, and I show you how the light passes from under the actual sphere? This is what's happening right here. Okay, and the actual sphere has volume. It's not a flat circle. Therefore, it protrudes. It's chubby, right? So it would block our view of the shadow just by a little bit. So whenever you do these steps, I recommend using tracing paper, and you may want to lower the circle or move the shadow a little bit so that there's a little bit more overlapping. Okay, because the actual sphere overlaps its own shadow. Okay, and if you saw the video of this other guy, that's what he does. Because I think he did it in Illustrator, so he just moved the circle a little bit to show that. Okay, questions so far? No? Everything's clear? Okay, I'm just gonna give you some extra tips if you're having a hard time doing the curve, or if you want to double check. Even when I do the curve, sometimes it looks a little bit bumpy. It's not the easiest thing to do. But if you feel too overwhelmed with lines, then this is enough. Okay, but if you don't mind working with extra lines, I mean, at this point you can, if you're doing this on your own, this is your note, so don't erase it, but at this point you can erase all these lines so that you don't end up with a bunch of lines, and you can add new lines to add more points to guide you. Okay, just like we did with the cylinder, that we added more triangles, we can do the same. And pretty much you can do it anywhere you want, as long as the top of the pole is touching a particular point on this circle. Okay, let's say you're not too sure about this curve right here. You're having a hard time, you don't like how it looks, you will like some extra points to guide you. Then you choose, it would be this portion right here, you choose a point anywhere. It can be right here where it touches the intersection, or it can be even right here, it doesn't matter. So just put a point, and then you create a new pole. Make sure it's perpendicular, parallel, all the way to the ground, not here, all the way to the ground. And then you do your triangle using the ground pivot point. And the light source. Here, here. It intersected right here. So see, I was a little bit off. So adding extra points can actually help you draw a better curve. Should be right there. Okay, so I created this red triangle. I'm using different colors so that it doesn't get too confusing. And as you may already have figured out, you actually don't have to draw as many lines, as long as you know which points you have to draw. Like, let me make another one right here. I'm gonna make this one right on the diagonal. all the way to the bottom line, okay, not the circle, all the way here. Ground line, light source, somewhere here, so should have stretched it a little bit more, somewhere like right there. I can even make a short one using the red one. I already have the ground line for the red one, so I make a short one right here. Tiny pole. See, that one was correct. Pretty close, so that one's correct. Similarly, I can make a tiny one with the blue one right here. I already have my ground line. And I make this right there. It intersects right there, so this curve was correct. So I only had to make corrections somewhere here and here, but right here was correct. Okay, and you can do as many points as you want, as many triangles as you want. It will give you all the points right here. And then you would just shade this ellipse, remembering not to have an outline on the actual shadow, okay, and deciding which type of shadow you want. Okay, you want a solid black one for a more dramatic look, or do you want blurry edges? So you can do your blurry edges as long as you don't go outside of this boundary. Okay. Questions? So let me show you how the independent should look like. Make sure you complete the other page as well if you have not done that, because you're gonna turn it in today. Okay, so in this case, I put the light source on the right. Okay, make sure you find this line in case you have some extra weird lines. Don't confuse it. And that's how the cast shadow of the cone would look like. Okay. You find the center, it's pointing upward, and this is how the cast shadow of the sphere will look like. Make sure you make all the steps, the square, and use the sides of the square as the poles, and shade it accordingly. Questions? All right, so let's get busy.